There has to be some common sense.
Yes, sir. They have the car stopped in 10th and Ranch, Michael Weiser.
We still don't know who pulled the trigger. Hello, everyone, and welcome to Police Off the Cuff, Real Crime Stories. I'm your host, retired NYPD Sergeant Bill Cannon, a 27-year veteran of the NYPD. And with me tonight, you guys are going to get all excited, is straight out of the Bronx. You thought I was going to say Brooklyn. Straight out of the Bronx, Professor and retired NYPD Sergeant Michael Geary, a professor at Albertus Magnus College in New Haven, Connecticut. Mike, good to see you tonight.
Billy, good to see you. Thank you for having me.
It's always a pleasure. You're a fan favorite. I don't know why, but you are. You're a fan favorite. You do a hell of a job. You know, Mike, one of the things that we've been covering, or we haven't been covering, but a lot of others have been covering, is there's a big conflict of interest right now with the attorney for Bryan Kohberger, who is a legal aid attorney, apparently a very good one. However, it came up that she was also representing, and I'll use her new name, Kara Northington, who actually also goes by Kara Knodel, who is the mother of, Zaina Knodel, obviously one of the victims in the Idaho quadruple homicide. The problem is that the attorney, Ann Taylor, as soon as she got summoned for the case of Bryan Kohberger, she sort of dropped Karen Northington like a hot potato. And I said potato. Is that New York-esque, or should I say potato? She dropped her like a hot potato, whatever. Anyway, she dropped her as a client. Now, it's sort of sad because Miss Karen Northington, she's got as you could see if we play the video from Ashley Banfield later on, she's got a rather severe drug problem. You could see it in the way she speaks. You can see it in the way she looks. And it's sort of sad. But a bigger problem that I have with it is that this is a death penalty case for Bryan Kohberger. So say the judge on this case of the quadruple murder case doesn't remove Ann Taylor from the case, and the case goes all the way through, and let's say use a fourth instance, he gets convicted and he's facing the death penalty. Might that in itself be a cause and a reason for almost an automatic appeal? So my thinking is, and I'm not an attorney, and I don't play one on TV. I'm just a cop, a retired NYPD sergeant. My thought is, why doesn't the judge remove her now? So this does not become a problem once millions of dollars are spent on this case, in the prosecution of this case. And in addition, how it seems to me unethical that she dropped Kara Knodel, as a client and jumped on this, of course, much bigger case of Bryan Kohberger, this quadruple murder. I mean, any attorney, I think, would probably do the same. However, is it A, is it unethical? B, is it done all the time? And C, can this be done without there being a legal problem with this and an automatic appeal in the event of a conviction and a guilty verdict against Bryan Kohberger? I'll give you the floor, Mr. Professor Geary.
All right. I have to agree with you, Billy, in some respects, and I have a difference of opinion in others. At first blush, what we call prima facie, looking at the case and the facts of the case right now, and the dropping of Ms. Knodel's mother as a client, it does look unseemly. It does look unprofessional. but looking at it, doing some research, I don't see that she has committed any sort of violation of her ethical obligations to her clients under under the canon of ethics for defense attorneys. I will agree, though, it does not look good, but Ms. Ann Taylor is in a very unique position. And so therefore, I think she did the best she could. She represented Ms. Knodl's mother several times over the past few years. Yes, they developed a relationship. And yes, she actually had a court case pending with Ms. Knodl's mother between the time that her daughter was, Ms. Knodl was killed, and the time that Mr. Kohberger came before the judge in Idaho. We go from November 13th, when the murders happened, and then we have him appearing in an Idaho court for the first time with Ms. Taylor on the 5th of January. It looks bad, and I can understand why there's a lot of outrage over it, but I think looking at the timeline, from what I know, it looks like Ms. Taylor immediately dropped Ms. Knodl's mother as a client when she was assigned to Mr. Kohberger's case, and therefore she's not representing two different people at the same time in the same case, which would definitely be a conflict of interest. But I don't see the conflict of interest here at all.
You know, Mike, I also want to bring to the attention of everyone that this is a small county in Idaho.
Yes.
They don't have a cache or a huge pool of legal aid attorneys.
They don't.
So it's not like the judge may have to reach outside, even further outside the county than he already did, to get someone who's competent enough to try this case. The judge is a she in this case.
Yes.
So let me play a little bit of this, and we'll get another little feel of this.
Ann Taylor is the public defender assigned to Bryan Kohberger in Latah County. She normally works for Kootenai County, but the judge brought her in because of the high-profile case. We confirmed Taylor represented someone in 2022 with the same name as a murder victim's parent, but this connection doesn't surprise former criminal defense lawyer Mo Hammoudi.
There is nothing sinister or nothing untoward about learning about a conflict. It happens all the time in any public defender office. There are always potential conflicts of interest because the public defender's office represents large amount of members of society.
He says when this happens, the attorney has an independent obligation to address the potential conflict. Then the court makes its own determination.
What needs to be determined is what is the matter and what is the representation. So the cases have to be analyzed, the facts need to be analyzed, and then a determination needs to be made.
But whether it impacts the court process depends on what type of conflict there is.
There is what's called a concurrent conflict of interest, which means that at the same time, concurrent meaning at the same time. And that's where there's a significant risk that the representation of one or more clients will be materially limited by the lawyer's responsibility to another client, a former client, or a third person. And concurrent conflicts of interest can arise from the lawyer's responsibilities to a former client.
Hammoudi says this means a lawyer cannot use information relating to a previous representation to the disadvantage of the former client. Idaho court filings show Taylor represented the parent up until as recently as January 5th. On this day, Taylor signed an attorney substitution to take over those court proceedings. All this just one day after her newest client arrived to Idaho from Pennsylvania. Hammoudi says conflicts of interest can result in the judge appointing another attorney. At this time, he says it's too early to say if there will be any effect on the Moscow case, but the first indication of potential impact could be Taylor filing a motion to be relieved counsel of record. We have reached out to the Kootenai County Public Defender's Office.
So it's, according to what we just listened to, it's not like a hard, solid rule. It's like not against ethical standards. And look, this becomes much more complicated because this is a death penalty case.
That's right.
This isn't two DWI cases where the attorney wants to represent this other person because they have a better chance of getting off or whatever might be a reason, an insignificant reason. This is a death penalty case. And this legal aid attorney happens to have experience in that area. I don't think there's anyone else in that area right now that does have that kind of experience. So is it still a hardcore ethical issue here? It would seem to me, if you, a layman, not being an expert in law, if you told me the circumstances, I would say, yeah, that's wrong. That's wrong. But again, my bigger issue with this is, do we go through the Bryan Kohberger trial and he's represented by Miss Taylor and he gets convicted and he's facing the death penalty and he gets the death penalty and that's part of the appeal. Oh, she should have never represented him. This is a conflict. Will that be, could that be?
Yeah, Billy, this isn't like a typical kind of case because, like, say, for instance, just a real simple case. You have you're buying a house. You know, an attorney can't represent both the seller and the client because that's a strict conflict of interest. Or you get a case of two guys want to rob a bank, they get caught, and you have one attorney representing both of the defendants. You're probably not going to do that sort of thing. There's going to be conflict of interest, especially if one of the defendants wants to flip on the other. That would be a clear conflict of interest. Here, I think Ms. Taylor did the right thing. She put in substitution of counsel and withdrew as counsel for Ms. Karen Northington. And she then entered the case on behalf of Mr. Kohberger. You're absolutely right. This is a very special case. You have to have, under Idaho law requires that in death penalty kind of cases like this, capital murder cases, the defense attorney must have prior experience with death penalty cases, capital cases. And in Idaho, those attorneys are few and far between. So I think what she did with withdrawing from the case was the right thing to do. She probably has or probably will soon address the issue with the judge in the case. And I'm sure that Ms. Taylor will also ask for and receive a written opinion from her local defense bar about this sort of possible conflict of interest. And that's what I would do if I was in her spot.
You know, Mike, I just want to read something. Lou Lemoracco in the chat. Very great, nice comment. Absolutely, but she has broken Idaho state law. Conduct code and conflict of interest. Where is this lawyer's moral compass? She is jeopardizing the future of this case. Lou, I would just like to say, and I don't know if in fact she's broken the law. I would think she brought this up to the judge. Now I think this complete matter is in the hands of this judge. If this judge decides to go forward and allow her to represent Bryan Kohberger, then I think that all responsibility from Ann Taylor, the defense attorney, has been passed to the judge because she put it out there. It's out there in public. She, you know, as they say, transparency, shine a light on it. She did. She told them what she did. She admitted she wrote what she did. Now, can she be held responsible for that now as being unethical? Did she break the law? No. This is, the judge will now make this decision. I think it's a very slippery slope, and I'll use lawyerly language, even though I'm not an attorney. It's a very slippery slope here if the judge allows her to go forward and represent him. Maybe a smart thing might be for the judge to allow her to be second counsel and allow someone else to be the lead counsel. This way, I don't think she could be held to the highest. And I could be wrong. Mike, what do you think about that?
I think Ann Taylor would, Ms. Ann Taylor, the defense attorney for Mr. Kohberger, would be smart to ask for a second seat. And I'm sure she's already asked for a second seat. She's going to have a war room with all kinds of specialists coming in, looking at the evidence. It's going to be a team effort, Team Kohberger effort. And if she doesn't have a second seat with her in the courtroom, then she's a fool. But I agree with the comments made by the viewer that it does seem like she has no moral compass, but it's one of those situations where she really has to represent Mr. Kohberger. She has to. There's like maybe no one else right now in the lineup that could. So this may change over the next couple of months, probably before June when they're getting back together in court. But by then, this will be a settled issue. But I don't see that right now, from what I know, I don't see it being something that would be an appealable issue if Mr. Kohberger loses. Under Idaho law of criminal procedure, in death penalty cases, if there is a conviction, there is an automatic appeal. So no matter what happens in this case, if Mr. Kohberger is convicted of the slayings, and if he is then sentenced to death by the jury, and that's not a complete 100% given either. If those two things happen, there's going to be an automatic appeal anyway. So we have a long way to go before we get there. And I don't want your viewers to like start jumping the gun and, jumping to conclusion because, this is not like a New York case where you have a huge defense bar, very small county, very small defense bar. And she is qualified and she has to be qualified under Idaho law. So she's in a very unique position. And I think she did the right thing by withdrawing from representing Miss Northington.
Mike, this case is controversial enough without added controversy to it. I mean, a quadruple murder. So many people have questioned this case. This case is not just a nationally known case, it's internationally known. It's not every day, every year, every 5 years, every 10 years that 4 students are slain outside a college campus in basically a house where they're staying to go to a university. They're slain and at knife point.
Right.
It just doesn't happen. So it's controversial enough without more controversy added to it. One of the things I wanted to talk about too is there's been more controversy with this very issue with Ann Taylor, the attorney, and with the mom, Kara Northington, of course, the mother of Zaina Knodel. So it's Kara Knodel. I want to use her proper name. But she was on Ashley Banfield. And I don't want to speak anything poor about Ashley Banfield. I really happen to respect Ashley Banfield. I think she's a great reporter. I've been on her show. She's been on our show. And I really like her. So you can take my comments with a spoonful of sugar or salt, whichever you would like. But people questioned why she had Kara Northington on her show. She obviously probably shouldn't be on TV. No. She doesn't look very well. She looks like she's got a drug addiction. And a lot of people had said that she was being patronized and she was being used. And I'm going to play a little bit of that. And as I said, and it's neither here nor there that I like Ashley Banfield. I just thought to put my prejudice out there that I do happen to like her, and I wouldn't want to speak against her, but I'll use the excuse. Many people have said that they thought this was unfair and patronizing to Kara Northington.
Conflicts of interest with attorneys for far less than this. I mean, let me give you an example. If you think that perhaps some point you want to divorce your spouse and you have a conversation with a couple of lawyers, your spouse can no longer retain any of those lawyers just because you had a conversation. So this woman, Kara Northington, whose daughter was violently murdered in Idaho, one of the Idaho 4, those 4 students killed in Moscow at the University of Idaho. She is now facing the reality that the person she trusted most with 4 of her cases is now representing her daughter's accused killer. Here's that conversation.
So, Kara, what was your first reaction when you learned that your former attorney is representing the man accused of killing your daughter?
I'm heartbroken. I'm heartbroken because I trusted her. She pretended that she was wanting to help me, and to find that out that she's representing him, I can't even convey how betrayed I feel.
Have you had a chance to speak with her about this?
No, I haven't spoken with her. I found out through a friend who found it on Reddit. So,
You found out through a friend through social media. You weren't notified by.
This is actually pretty brutal to watch, in my opinion. And I think that Ashley Banfield and News Nation got some real pushback on this.
Well-deserved pushback.
Well, tell me how you feel, Mike.
You know, I think Ashley Banfield is very, very much aware of the gag order that's in place, and that applies to police, investigators, law enforcement, forensics people, ballistics people, CSI people, and also and it says anyone else who has interest in the case. Now, Miss Northington is the mother of one of the maybe the first witness that is going to be testifying in this case, Ms. Kernodle. And there is a possibility that Ms. Northington may be called.
Well, Mike, let me just correct you. Her daughter, Zaina, was one of the students that was murdered.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, I just.
Yeah, it's possible. I got it mixed up with DM. Ms. Kernodle's mom, Ms. Northington, there is a possibility, not a huge possibility, but there's a possibility that she may be called to testify in this trial if there was any sort of inconsistent statements made between any of the surviving roommates to any of the family members of those who had been killed and murdered by Mr. Kohberger. So for Ashley Banfield to actually interview her and solicit information from her, I think wasn't the proper thing to do at this time. And I wished, like Mr. Gonsalves earlier, I wish Ms. Northington did not take the call and did not have the interview with Miss Banfield. I don't see that it helped her in any way, shape, or form. And I think it made Ms. Banfield look like she's just chasing, an angle of the case that should be left alone.
Mike, I agree with you. I think it was like it's a bad look.
Yeah.
I mean, why would you put her on TV? She's
Right.
obviously a sick woman, and I mean, sick in the way that she's drug addicted, and that's what gets her into trouble. That's, I'm sure, what her case is about. She wants to go into rehab. She voices her opinion that her lawyer betrayed her because she was representing her in her drug case. And Miss Taylor, Ann Taylor, her attorney, who also was Bryan Kohberger's attorney, she gave her power of attorney to make decisions for her. So she feels betrayed. But again, you mentioned it also.
That's understandable.
The overarching theme is that no one else in this case is allowed to speak to the press because of the gag order issued by the judge. So this, I'll use the term, this seems like the low-hanging fruit to come up with a story. However, it didn't work well or run well with social media and with audiences because people pushed back. And apparently, I'll play another video later on where Ashley Banfield got quite upset at some of the things that were being said about her and about this interview. But I think that when you put someone on TV that is obviously drug addicted and obviously in pain and obviously in need of rehab, I don't think it's the greatest decision making by a TV station to do that.
Yeah, I think it was a poor look for Ashley Banfield and her station. Ms. Northington deserves all of our sympathy, like Mr. Gonsalves. but sometimes the media can take advantage of that, of their pain, and then try to get a headline out of it or get some clicks on it. I think it was a terrible thing to do. I seriously doubt that Ms. Taylor actually requested to represent Mr. Kohberger. I think the judge probably assigned her to represent Mr. Kohberger. And so therefore, if that's the way it goes, she is very uniquely qualified in that county. And therefore, there's just not a lot of other people who can do what she has to do right now.
Absolutely.
Hey, Ann Taylor, your attorney herself.
Right now.
And have you tried to reach out to her?
No, I just found out today, literally. So, yeah.
So, I mean, just so many thoughts. It's so incredible that there is this connection. Are you going to try to fight this at all?
Well, yeah, absolutely. Yes.
Because as I understand it, this would require a waiver, something that you sign and that he would sign in order for her to go ahead and be able to do this legitimately. I can imagine the way your reaction is that you are not interested in signing a waiver to allow her to continue on.
Right, exactly. And I'd already given her power of attorney. I'd already signed over power of attorney so that she could help me with getting into rehab and whatnot. And so, I mean, I don't understand how she could do this. I don't understand what happens now. Does she still have power of attorney, or what goes on now?
And no one has reached out to you from the public defender's office to help you navigate next steps?
No.
Have you been in communication with the police and prosecutors about the next step in this process and where you might fit in?
No.
And do you want that? Do you want to be in communication with them to understand what's happening and what they're going to be doing as they move forward in prosecuting him?
Oh, yeah, yes.
So no one has reached out.
I think that this interview, frankly, is disturbing. I can't say anything else. Fuzzy Doxy, thank you for the $4.99 super chat. Do you think it would be frowned upon as much if they just used a picture and voice rather than live? Well, I think that wouldn't be as effective for what their purposes were. This is TV. This is drama, and as I said, as much as I like and respect Ashley Banfield, I think this was a mistake to put Kara Northington on in an interview like this. It's painful to watch to me. I don't know the rest of you guys in the chat how you feel about this. I think a lot of people have voiced their opinions on both social media and on News Nation's site that this was painful and that they didn't think it was right that she was interviewed. Mike?
Yeah, I mean, our sympathy is with Ms. Northington, and if she wants, and I'm sure she will, make a complaint with the state bar out in Idaho. But these situations where an attorney has to leave one client, withdraw from representation, these things happen from time to time, and they have to then be transferred to another attorney. So it's not a unique situation. It's in a small place like Idaho. In this kind of situation, this is a very difficult situation for everyone. Here she is, seeing her attorney, who she probably likes and trusts, now representing a gentleman who stands accused of killing her daughter in cold blood. My heart goes out to her, but Ms. Banfield, I think, is looking for a headline, and it's not right at all. I think what she did with Ms. Northington, I think she used Ms. Northington.
Folks, this is Police Off the Cuff, real crime stories. If you like real crime from a police perspective, you're in the right place. And if you're not subscribed to us, please go on our YouTube, hit that subscribe button, give us a thumbs up, ring that bell, make comments. We love to read your comments. We love to react to your comments. We like when the comments are nice. Sometimes they're not nice, and we react to them too. We also have a Patreon with 3 different levels if you want to assist us financially. And we have a YouTube channel members, would count them, 5 different levels. And we appreciate all our friends, our subscribers, and our fans. They keep us wanting to do this every single night. So thank you so much. Yeah, I can't help but you understand what television does and what television is. And this was exacerbated by the fact that a judge issued a gag order. So you know that TV, broadcast stations, and print media, they're chomping on the bit
Sure.
to get more information, because it's almost like this is the biggest case of the year. It's we've only not even 1 month into January 2023, but this is a huge international case. And when broadcast media and print media can't get any facts to report on this story, sometimes things get sensationalized. And maybe sometimes, and I don't know how they feel about this now, sometimes they do things that maybe that they could even, and I'm not going to speak for them. I don't know if they regret putting her on. Maybe they don't. I don't know. But I think that potentially the gag order resulted in an interview like this. What do you think, Mike?
I think, yes, I think the gag order was a good thing to do, but these are the results that happen, is that when there's such a dearth of information out there, they're going to try to look for every single possible angle to fill in the time slot. And this, unfortunately, is an example of what happens, in that sort of information vacuum. And I hope that, other outlets besides Miss Banfield, about Miss Banfield's outfit, takes this to heart and say, we have to do other things, but we can't do, fill in the time, but we cannot do this.
Yeah, no doubt. Let's see what Chris Cuomo and Jennifer Koffendorfer have to say here.
The accused in the Idaho murder case also represented the mother of one of the victims?
That's exactly right. The mother of
We've helped millions of creators improve their SEO.
Sorry, guys. Every time Mike Geary comes on, I have some kind of malfunction.
Oh,
I don't want to blame him.
Sorry, please. I'm a jinx.
Karen Broderick, thank you for the £5 super chat. I was disgusted when I saw this interview. Breach of gag order. Ashley knows this too. Could this compromise the investigation? What do you think, Mike? I'll let you answer that.
It's definitely, I think, a breach of gag order, because there is that little possibility that Ms. Northington may be called at some point. She's a possible potential witness. So yeah, I think that it is. I agree. It is absolutely uncalled for. It was, I think, a violation of the gag order. It's a gag order is an order from a judge, and in a case like this, the judge has all the power, and media has to respect it. Absolutely, I agree.
Mike, we see, and I'm not going to get into talking about it right now, but we see the Murdaugh case down in South Carolina, Alec Murdaugh, and on trial for killing his son and his wife.
Yes.
And he has a bunch of other charges that has nothing to do with this case. This is the murder trial, a double murder. And the case is being televised. And I have a problem with that. I really do, because you and I and many other people our age grew up with the trial of the century, of course, was the O.J. Simpson case. And we watched as prosecutors, defense attorneys, witnesses, everyone, it was like a Hollywood case, played to the cameras in that case. And I couldn't help but think of how that affected justice. And I don't know if it delivered justice, because, again, people were playing. We all remember some of the quotes. Johnny Cochran, the famous attorney, if the glove don't fit, you must acquit. There was even rhymes going on. People were playing. Judge Ito heard that Mark Furman had said something against his wife, who happened to be an LAPD police captain. He got visibly upset, almost like in tears. I was like, would that really get him upset day to day, or is he playing to the cameras? And I had to think he was playing to the cameras. And Marsha Clark, she would do lots of things. You play with her hair and feign, acting. And of course, the dream team, Johnny Cochran, F. Lee Bailey, Robert Shapiro. I can't even, they had about 14 different attorneys. And they were all, and I just, from that day on, I was like, there should never be cameras in the courtroom. Yeah. I think it affects everyone. How about the witnesses even, Right. I remember Johnny Cochran, one of the witnesses was a DNA expert, and he was Asian. And Johnny Cochran made some kind of comment like, oh, we made chop suey of him. And I was like, oh my God, imagine that. Can you believe he said that, Yeah. And all of this stuff was on television that went out to the whole world. And when that not guilty verdict came in, it was playing in every living room across the world practically. I was at work at the time in the 2-4 detective squad. And it was bringing what they called the trial of the century into your living room.
Yeah, it was a circus. It was a 3-ring circus, from the white Bronco escapade. If you remember the white Bronco escapade on the LA freeway. I was in law school taking an evidence class that semester. We spent every day that we had class, we would review everything that went on in the O.J. Simpson case. And I agree with you. It brings about a 3-ring circus atmosphere, and everybody's looking, the attorneys, the judge, Judge Ito, the attorneys, everyone is looking and presenting themselves very differently. When you're on camera, it. And when if you're off camera, you're off camera, you're not paying attention. But on camera, it turned into 3-ring circus. And every night there was running commentary from all of the networks about, as you say, Miss Clark's hair, Johnny Cochran's suit, the way he presented the rhyming, the glove don't fit, you must acquit. Mark Furman having a book deal where he gave some information that was used against him as to impugn his character, all kinds of crazy stuff. And after a while, the actual double homicide, a brutal double homicide with a hunting knife, where 2 young people were brutally slain right out there in front of one of their homes, kind of gets lost. And it becomes all about the presentation in court rather than why we are here in a televised courtroom to begin with. And I hope that they don't do that here in Idaho. It would be a terrible disservice.
Mike, and the whole thing was also, the proof of the pudding is that I shouldn't say all, many of the people that were the characters, the cast of characters in the O.J. Simpson trial, became famous in their own right after the trial was over. I think Marsha Clark has been working steadily on TV shows since that trial. Show after show after show she's on.
She's commenting about this case.
Yes. Mark Furman, same thing. Mark Furman became famous from that.
Oh, yeah.
Who was the other?
Chris Darden.
Chris Darden.
I read his book.
Got $1 million or a couple $1 million contract for a book, I believe. So
it was pretty good.
It shows the power of of television.
Yeah.
Celebrity. Who was the guy who lived in O.J. Simpson's house? Who was like the surfer? Who was I can't think of his name. He became famous too. It was so it's just like, is that what cameras in the courtroom does? Because it certainly didn't do justice.
No,
it didn't help the ends of justice. No. So I hope that they learn, and I guess it's up to the judge to say, yes, cameras in the courtroom, no cameras in the courtroom. But in a case like this, I would imagine there will be tremendous pressure on the judge to say, okay, yes, cameras in the courtroom. I don't know. Yeah. And does she have the power to say no?
I think unless Idaho's law states to the contrary, she probably absolutely has the power to say no cameras. Or if she wants to allow cameras, maybe one fixed camera pointing towards the witness stand or something like that. But if I was the judge, I would not want it at all. I would do anything and everything in my power to ensure that there's no cameras in the courtroom.
Our chat came through again. The character was Cato Canlan.
Ah, that's
who-
it.
He was the surfer dude that was like, "Well, man, I don't know. I don't remember what time it was, man."
That's right.
Like,
That's a name out of the past. Thank
everyone
you.
wanted to be a Cato Kalin, to live in some millionaire's house for free and just to watch the property, like,
Right.
and just be a surfer dude during the day.
That's
It's
right.
like, again, characters became just Lorraine Lawrence. I will, Lorna, I will never agree with that verdict, but Kardashian, Kardashian, there was their father,
Yeah.
the
Robert.
Kardashian's father. I forget his first name.
Robert.
Robert Kardashian. He was an attorney.
Yeah.
And he was not OJ's attorney, but people believe he got rid of the murder weapon. Many
I didn't
people believe that he got the suitcase, and he hid behind lawyer-client confidentiality, and I believe was never called as a witness because
No.
he claimed he was, he used that lawyer-client confidentiality. But yeah, so you see, and guys, we're just using this as an example of why we think that cameras in the courtroom are a bad idea, and all of these things. Ronald Goldman, who was one of the victims,
Yes.
Nicole Brown Simpson, who was OJ's wife, and Ronald Goldman Jr., I believe, who was a waiter in the restaurant she used to frequent.
That's right.
The father couldn't get enough television. He was on TV every single night being interviewed. And I was like, what are you doing, dude? Your son is murdered. What is this? Why are you going on TV every single night? But it gets like addicting, and people, I guess,
and perhaps in his defense, maybe he realized that the tidal wave of information and entertainment was, directed at O.J. Simpson rather than his son. And so I'd like to think that he probably did it just to try to keep his son's name and Nicole Brown Simpson's name out there in the public so that people realize they were the names of the victims. Maybe that's what he did. Maybe that's why he did it.
Absolutely. LR, I disagree. Cameras belong in the courtroom as the public pays for the justice system.
Okay.
The public deserves to see what happens in courtrooms. LR, you have every right to your opinion, but I also think the main thing that a court wants to do is give justice. And I think cameras in the courtroom have an effect on justice being done. So that's why I'm against it. A little Dan Abrams.
The mother of Idaho murder victim Xana Kernodle spoke to News Nation's Ashley Banfield, and this wasn't just about how heartbroken she is or even about the suspect, Bryan Kohberger. No, she has a bizarre connection to Kohberger's lawyer that should really lead to a lot of questions. Kohberger's public defender, Ann Taylor, who we've seen in court with Kohberger, withdrew as the lawyer for Kara Northington, Xana's mother, when she agreed to take the Kohberger case. Yes, Kohberger's lawyer withdrew from her case to defend the man accused of killing her daughter. Her charges were filed on November 19th, just 6 days after her daughter's murder. After being charged with 2 felony counts of possession of a controlled substance, Taylor withdrew on January 5th, the day a judge appointed her as Kohberger's public defender for the murders of Xana, Madison, Kaylee, and Ethan. Now, Xana's mom spoke with Ashley about how she felt learning the news that her attorney had sort of switched sides, so to speak.
I'm heartbroken because I trusted her. She pretended that she was wanting to help me.
We saw that already. I just wanted to show, it is, we covered early on why it's a conflict of interest. However, we believe that Ann Taylor covered herself by letting the court know. Mm-hmm. So is she liable for ethics violations? I don't think so. No. I think she totally covered herself. And I think it's for her, it's all good. Now the ball is in the court of the judge, I believe.
Yeah, I think Dan Abrams' characterization of the relationship, I think he's an attorney also. And
Dan
so,
Abrams, yeah, it seems
yeah.
everyone's got a law degree these
Yeah.
days. Even
They just hand them
even Professor Mike Geary's
Yeah.
got. He
I
picked
got
one
one.
up along the way. He was going to work one day, just picked up a law
Yeah,
degree.
I got one, but I think unfortunately when they characterize, Chris Cuomo does this or Dan Abrams does it, and they characterize it as extraordinary, strange, weird, unbelievable, unconventional, whatever it happens to be, whatever words they use to convey some sort of outrage, I think it does a disservice to everyone concerned, because then you get these conspiracy theories going around, misinformation about, Bryan Kohberger is going to be set free, all kinds of crazy things. And it's nowhere near as dramatic at all. And I think it really does a disservice to the public, because I think it actually misleads the public very much.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I tell you what, I think that I would guess that this gag order will be in place at least till June 26th, which is the next court appearance for Bryan Kohberger and his defense attorney, Ann Taylor. I just feel there's going to be leaks. There's
Sure.
been lots of leaks in this case as it is. I mean, many people, many journalists knew things that we didn't know much earlier than when we found out. A lot of people knew all about the Hyundai Elantra and how early in the investigation they had that information. Many journalists knew that. So that was leaks. And where were those leaks coming from? How many talking heads did we see during this investigation that used to work for the FBI? How many did we see?
Many.
Many. How many? Who's working on this case?
Right.
The FBI, right? You think potentially they leaked some information to their buddies? Do you think that's a possibility? How about we had heard early on in this investigation, unconfirmed, and this is where the rumors ran rampant on social media, that there was an eyewitness, DM. That was out there very early also, right?
Right.
The information that the car had sped past the gas station. We don't know exactly. We didn't get that. They knew about that, I think, in the first week. We didn't get that, I think, till 3 weeks into the investigation. However, many other law enforcement not law enforcement, many other news agencies, and we are content creators. We don't have the same power of the same connections as the broadcast media. But many, of course, network news stations, they get fed information through their connections with the FBI and through other means. So the gag order, there's still going to be leaks.
No matter what.
Hope that the person from law enforcement that leaks this stuff doesn't get caught, because they could be held in contempt of court if they do get caught leaking information.
Yeah, you don't want that. That could be a career killer. You could be held in contempt by the judge. And in a courtroom, during a trial, a judge is God, and their word is law, and that's the way it goes. So, heaven help anyone who is caught leaking information. Hey, Billy, can I address one issue that one of your readers, one of your subscribers had brought up a couple weeks ago?
Mike, I could be a boss and say no.
Oh, okay.
You can do whatever you want.
Oh, okay. Thank you. It's great to be a guest. I get to do this. Thank you. Now, one of your subscribers had a really great question last week, and it was about whether or not, because of the double jeopardy clause in our Constitution, what would happen if, Bryan Kohberger was found innocent if you put all 4 of the homicides together in one trial, like it's going to happen. Then if he's found innocent, that's the end of everything and he goes free. And why wouldn't the prosecution, the question was, why wouldn't the prosecution want to divide the case up into 4 separate homicides and have 4 separate homicide trials? Therefore, you get 4 shots at the apple. So if he gets acquitted on one, you still have 3 other opportunities to go and try him for this homicide. And the answer is simply that the judge wouldn't allow it at all. The judge is going to make sure, and it would happen that this is just a short time frame from, say, 4 a.m. to 4:16 in the morning. the fact pattern is so small and so brief. They were all the homicides took place in one home, and therefore it's one huge transaction, one huge criminal enterprise that Kohberger is accused of undertaking. So that won't happen. The prosecutor, if they did want it, and they wouldn't probably want it because they'd have to prepare for 4 separate trials, and that's too much.
But
The
Mike,
defense
isn't that
wouldn't want it
usually
either?
isn't that usually a tactic employed by the defense?
Yes,
The
separation. Yes.
severing of cases, the
Mhm.
severing of trials. But
Yeah.
I don't even know if in a case like this, if the defense would want this.
No, I mean, it's a great question, and I loved it, and I thought about it for a while. But yeah, the defense wouldn't even want it because if they got an acquittal on Kohberger in the very first instance, say if they only did one homicide, they would have to be prepared to defend him 3 other times. And you know what? It would be, and if he was convicted on any of those other subsequent times, if they actually did this 4 trials, you would have an appeal, on the grounds of double jeopardy anyway, because it's one fact pattern. Great question, but yeah, it would never happen.
Well, Mike, this case, even with it being all 4 being, Bryan Kohberger being tried for all 4 murders at the same time, this case is going to cost millions of dollars.
Oh, sure.
Could you imagine they severed this case and gave each case a separate trial?
Yeah.
It would be ridiculous. And
Right. You'd be here 3 or 4 years trying this case.
yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
Folks, if you're looking for a good attorney in the New York City metropolitan area, Joe Murray is your man. Joe Murray is a retired NYPD police officer, got a law degree along the way, just like Mike Geary, and he went into defense. And you can reach Joe on his cell at 718-514-3855. His email, joe@jmurray-law.com. His website is jmurray-law.com. Joe Murray is a huge, huge supporter of Police Off the Cuff, one of our biggest, has been with us from the beginning. So again, if you need an outstanding attorney, there's the flyer on the screen in the New York metropolitan area. Joe is your man. This case is, it hasn't even picked up steam yet as far as, look, we were all so relieved, I think, of course, December 30th, when he was arrested in Pennsylvania, and the evidence started flowing in, and then the rumors and the people saying, oh, I don't think he did it, or did he have an accomplice, did he this, did he that? And of course, all of these things are exacerbated by the judge putting a gag order, because now no one can say anything that is fact to the press or to anyone else. So as you said earlier on, Mike, rumors ran rampant. We were talking about Ashley Banfield before, and I'm going to play a little bit of her reaction to, I think, social media's reaction to her interview of Kara Northington. And I don't think she was very happy about it. And so let's just play a little bit of this. And again, we voiced our opinion of this and what we think this meant to everyone out there.
That a lot of people on social media have been talking about. And I'm going to get very personal here, so just bear with me, if you will. There were a lot of people who were very upset that we ran this interview. And some of the comments that I read upset me, because I look at Karen Northington as a woman who has admitted that she has struggled with addiction mightily. She admitted on television that she was in rehab and needed help from her attorney to get there. Her struggles are real. And the fact that she lost her daughter to a ghastly crime is real. And she is a victim in all of this. And she deserves a say. She deserves a say from the very get-go, because she's been victimized as a family member of a murder victim. And I do not care where she spends her evenings, or whether she's been in jail, or whether she needed a public defender. She has a voice. She deserves to speak. And when this happened with her attorney, she 100% gets to speak. She has a dog in this fight, because her attorney is now representing her daughter's accused killer. Let it sink in. She has a right to speak. She has a case. And I think Ann Taylor has explaining to do. And to that end, we called Ann Taylor's office. Understandably, she can't get back to me. There's a gag order in this case, so she can't respond. But at some point, she's going to have to respond. And for anyone out there who thinks this is somehow sinking the case against Bryan Kohberger, let me be honest with you. A conflict of interest for a death penalty case can overturn a case. So if you're worried about this, you should be. You should be worried that an attorney who is not fit to serve as an attorney because of a conflict should not be in a death penalty case, lest the state of Idaho wants to spend a whole bunch more money and a whole bunch more emotion to have to retry this case again. And I am pretty sure nobody wants that. Thank you for watching. Go to news.
So, Mike, what do you think about that? I don't think, what she was talking about there was really what people on social media and people that responded to the interview of Xana Kernodle's mom, Kara, in Northington. I think they were more responding to the fact that what we said earlier is that she didn't belong on TV getting interviewed in the condition that she was in. And I think to most people, and I don't want to speak for most people, I'm going to speak for myself. For me, I didn't like the look of it. And as I previously stated, I like Ashley Banfield. I think she's a great reporter, but sometimes I think we all can get carried away and do things that aren't it's not the best look. Let me put it that way.
Yeah, with all due respect to Ms. Banfield, her ranting in that piece we just saw is confused. She's confusing several issues about adequate representation of Ms. Northington, and then she's intertwining that with adequate representation for Mr. Kohberger and where this is going to lead to a possible, problem going ahead and an automatic appeal. And it's very confused. It's rambling. It's not well organized. It's emotional, and it really doesn't have a bearing on any sort of reality. Ms. Taylor was picked to be the attorney for Mr. Kohberger, and she immediately withdrew as representation for Ms. Northington. She did what she was supposed to do. It's not a perfect world, and these things happen, and I do feel sorry for Ms. Northington, and it would have been better to address this sort of issue later on in a different forum. But I'm not impressed with Ashley Banfield's response whatsoever.
Yeah, I mean, look, how will this affect the case and what we discussed in this? We're close to the hour now.
Yeah.
Will this affect the case? And my thought early on was that the judge could just, the judge if she thought that this was an issue that could be used as an appeal, I believe that she would remove Miss Taylor as the lead defense attorney in this case. Is this a precedent, or has the other attorney, when we played the little file tape, he had said this happens all the time. Yeah. This is not a precedent-setting case. Attorneys do this all the time. How many people out there, and I've heard this a million times by people who have hired attorneys, how many people have hired an attorney? They go to court and another attorney shows up to represent them from the law firm of the attorney that they hired. I'm sure that doesn't make the person that spent thousands of dollars to hire this attorney, I'm sure that doesn't make them happy. And I'm not comparing this to that, but there's certain things that are done because of expediency, because of busyness, because of an attorney can get stuck at one place and not be able to get to the other courtroom. So all of these things we could consider as laymen as, oh my God, that guy that's ethically ridiculous. He didn't show up to court. But there is, precedent for some of this, and for some of it, there is no precedent.
Yeah. This storm of controversy right now is going to die down. And the way I see it, it will have absolutely no effect on the case. The judge will make a decision, and I'm sure the judge is already, obviously the judge is already aware. The judge will make a decision, and either Ms. Taylor will be removed. I doubt she'll be removed. She cured any sort of possible conflict of interest on the 5th of January. So that should settle the case. And I'm sorry that the viewers have to have all kinds of misinformation thrown out there and, made into a drama for absolutely no reason. And so I doubt this little firestorm right now is going to have any bearing whatsoever on the case going forward. None whatsoever.
Mike, I agree with you. What we're seeing on the screen right now, and I was showing some of the pictures of the victims from the Idaho case, but I don't like to go through an episode without mentioning what this case is all about.
Mm-hmm.
What this case is all about is Ethan Chapin, Zaina Knodel, Madison Mogen, and Kaylee Gonzalez, 4 University of Idaho students that lost their lives violently on November 13th, 2022. And that's what this case is all about. And we never, ever want to lose sight of that. No matter all of the stuff that we hear, all of the drama, all of the non-drama we hear, all the things we made up, the rumors, the gag orders, the attorneys, the prosecutors, the detectives, the FBI agents, Bryan Kohberger, his family, his PhD studies at the University of Washington State. All of those things mean nothing. What really means everything was that slide that I put on the screen of Ethan Chapin, Zaina Knodel, Madison Mogen, and Kaylee Gonzalez. And that's what's most important in this case.
Absolutely. That's the focus, and that should be the focus the entire time. Nothing else.
Absolutely. Mike, we hit an hour. Final words.
Just like I usually say, just be patient for everybody. All the subscribers, be patient, tune in. You'll get the facts here. You're not going to get drama like you see on other stations and mischaracterizations. And hold the families in your prayers, like Gonzalez family and Ms. Northington. They're hurting tremendously, and our heart goes out to them. And just keep them in your prayers.
Absolutely. Mike, I just want to reiterate to you so you feel the love from the chat. Catherine Lansell, great show tonight, Bill. I love Mike Geary. Everyone loves Mike Geary, Straight out of the Bronx, law degree, retired NYPD sergeant. Folks, I want to thank every one of you for coming by tonight. This case is just, even the twists and turns it takes and going through what we're going through in this case. We appreciate you following us and following our case and following Police Off the Cuff Real Crime Stories. I want to wish everyone a great night. God bless, and thanks for supporting Police Off the Cuff Real Crime Stories.
Good evening, everybody.
One episode just ain't enough.